Good evening. We'd like to welcome everyone to tonight's meeting. Since we have a quorum, I am going to call this meeting to order tonight. If we would all please stand. Mr. Smith, will you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I will. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May be seated. Before we approve the agenda tonight, there are two items, board members, that we need to remove from the agenda. Item 9, which is called Policy 8260, Crowdsourcing Update, and also number 11, the Pender Computer Lab Conversion to a Classroom. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
Make a motion to approve the agenda as amended, removing item 9 and item 11.
All right, Mr. Smith has made the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Burns is seconding. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? So moved.
Can we have a discussion about the North Carolina School Board Association? That would also require an amendment.
Is that correct, Mr. McPherson? So
Yeah.
Mr. Hall has asked that we add an item to the agenda. Where would we?
That would,
But we were going to add it under information.
what, Mr. Hall, do you wish for that to be an action item or an information item?
If we put it under action, does that necessarily mean that we have to vote on it after we discuss it?
No, no, sir, it does not, Mr. Hall.
Then I would rather it be under action if everybody's okay with that.
Okay, so
Mr. Hall's made a motion that we add item number 15, well,
I'd go 14A, Madam Chair, if that's helpful.
14,
14A,
14A,
yep,
Under
unless you want to
the-
renumber.
action agenda. Discussion of the North Carolina School Board Association. Is that correct, Mr. Hall?
Yep.
Okay. Do we have a motion that's approved? Do we have a motion to do that?
Well, I made the motion.
You made the motion, so we have a second.
I'll second.
Ms. Burns is seconding. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so moved. All right. Mr. Riley, we do have recognitions tonight, correct? Or no, we don't have any? Okay, so
Well, there is one, Madam Chair. It's in consent, but I'm scared it wouldn't get announced if we left it in consent. So I did want to make reference to it. Number 7 in consent, I just wanted to thank the donation from the Hamptons Women's Club. They gave $1,000 to the school system to support the students. And I just wanted to make sure that got said out loud on the air.
all right.
And also,
Thank you.
this is Black History Month. And also, this is CTE Month, by the way.
All right.
And this is Love the Bus Week.
Love the bus week.
So for you guys out there, now's the time to kind of appreciate that driver a little more this week than normal.
Absolutely. It's one job I never wanted, and I admire everyone who does. All right. So, no public comments, Mr. Riley? Okay. Moving on into the information agenda. Item number 1, COVID-19 school operations update.
Madam Chair, we have the health department online to give us the update numbers for the county.
Good evening, everybody. This is Shirley Steele.
Good evening.
Good evening. Just to give an update where we are with cases right now. Pender County's at 4,311 cases. We've got 51 deaths. 11 are currently hospitalized. 95% have recovered. Our positive test rate is 11%, and the state is 9.3%. And we've really been expecting that to come down even more because, granted, we're getting cases dumped into NCED, which is the reporting system for the state, but daily. But our number of cases coming across our fax machine have decreased substantially. So we're hoping to see that positive test rate really go down in the next coming weeks. vaccine right now, our primary focus is on vaccinating. And to date, we have given 4,613 vaccines. The health department has given that many. And I meant to look up how many people in Pender County have been vaccinated, and I just did not do that. We plan to give another 700 vaccines this week. We opened up to online appointments today. We had 200 appointments booked in an hour and 45 minutes. We're hoping to continue doing the online appointments moving forward. We do have the call-in option for those who are unable to maneuver the website, which it is a fairly easy sign-up. Today there was so much activity, though, it did overwhelm the site, and people had to be patient and go back in more than once. But I don't know that there's any site right now that, when you have vaccines available, that it's not being overwhelmed. As far as outbreaks in the county, I can speak to long-term care facilities. Right now, we currently do not have any outbreaks in our long-term care facilities, so we are very happy about that. And we are currently vaccinating our 65 and older and all healthcare workers, and we're hoping to be able to move to essential workers in the next few weeks. As most of you probably know, essential workers is made up of a large group of people. And so I'm not sure at what point in time we will be able to get all of those folks vaccinated. The good thing about this is that anyone can go to any county and receive the vaccine. I think that's about all of the information I have. Does anybody have any questions?
Just to clarify, Ms. Steele, the essential workers, is that the group 3?
Yes, that is group 3.
Right.
Group priority,
So
group 3.
that would be where
Yeah.
the teachers will be in with everybody else. I'm sure that's a lot of people listening.
Yeah, it's teachers, school personnel, it's your food workers, law enforcement, and we kind of look at essential workers as anyone who worked during the shutdown also.
Thank you, ma'am.
Board members, any questions for Ms. Steele? No? Thank you, Ms. Steele. I think we're good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And just a few more updates. This was the latest dashboard information pulled at just shy of 4 p.m. today. And of course, you can see at the very top, we have our isolated numbers. And of course, those vary as they come on and come off, depending upon their isolation dates. We have our quarantine numbers up in the upper left-hand corner, parsed out by school. And then there's some new functionality with regards to this dashboard, and hopefully you've been able to work with it. You can parse it out by date or a date range. So you can really kind of drill down and get some very specific data. It's Craig Lawson. This is his thing, and he's done a phenomenal job with it. What you see underneath the date range then is a trend line specific to the particular date range, and then of course at the just shy of the bottom, you have the overall numbers. And so that's for that date range that I've pulled, which is starting this Sunday to today. And then at the very bottom, the symptoms. And so that is then just tracking in a scatter plot. So it's very functional, and you can do it from the very beginning, from when we started having issues in August to now, or any time in between. We can take a look at what happened over Christmas break, take a look at Thanksgiving. You can slice and dice it to whatever desire you want. So very functional. Of course, this is Mr. Riley's weekly posting, and this is, of course, went up yesterday. And then this is just what goes into the spreadsheet, and this is a different kind of trend line. These are just strictly diagnoses that go in, and as you can see, we're on week 29 since all of this began. And then lastly, I'll turn it over to Mr. LaFawn to speak to the operations component.
Good evening, board members. Actually, there's not a whole lot different from last month to this month. We are still on pace to be able to handle everything that's coming at us so far. Stock-wise, we're good to go with all of our sanitation needs and disinfectant needs and PPE. If you have any questions. Thank you.
From a transportation perspective, everything is still in place. The one big thing just to take away from this is we are watching the current capacity issues just to be on the safe side because, as you know, as the students come back from face-to-face, from virtual to face-to-face and things like that, we are watching those, making sure that we're kind of within the legal requirements. And I don't know if Dr. Aiken would like to speak to any classroom components.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. Nothing much to add. I will say we are monitoring the news coming out of Raleigh regarding the possibilities of Plan A, Plan B, certain groups being able to come back in entirety for Plan A. We're monitoring that. We've reached out to our principals. They're trying to pull numbers and have them ready in case we need to act on it. But at this time, if there is some good news, it seems to be that our staff and our students are in a routine. Our schools are working hard on taking advantage of some of the COVID money to figure out some creative tutoring options, and we're looking at a number of ways to support our students during the 4 days a week, on Wednesdays at home. We've got some great partnerships going on, so we're sort of holding firm right now, but we are watching any news coming out of Raleigh that may suddenly have us change our plans.
Board, I think there's been a lot.
If that does come out of Raleigh, are we ready to roll on it fairly quick? Do you feel?
Within reasonable time. I guess it depends on exactly what Raleigh tells us. We have pulled all of our virtual numbers, looking at specifically all of our EC students in 504, so we know exactly how many are still online. That would be the part of the bill that probably has the biggest impact. As Dr. B mentioned, we're trying to keep a very close eye on the number of classrooms that are nearing that whole 6-foot rule. One of the questions I've asked Dr. Hill to try to send up to whomever is making these decisions is if they keep our 612 schools under Plan B, but then require us to offer all students with IEPs and 504s to come back. Now, most of ours have, but in a couple of our schools, it's going to put our middle schools specifically in a quandary, because if they're under B and required to follow the 6-foot rule, but then also told we need to allow any remaining students, if they haven't already come back, we're going to have a class size issue in a couple situations. Again, the good news, I think, the way Pender County has handled this all along, and that we've always maintained that option for our students. Most of the families that are still out at this point are out because that's just a decision they have made. So when we look at the number of times we've had reentry processes, I think many of the students who maybe initially didn't want to or had concerns, the vast majority are back. But we did collect that number, and we do know that in a couple schools, if we're still told to be under B, but yet also follow the new Senate Bill 37, we're going to have some situations where that's going to put our schools in a quandary. We just don't know what we're supposed to do. So we've sent that question on up to the powers that be to get them hopefully thinking about it. Elementary's been running. They've done an amazing job all the way along. Our high schools, we've begun some conversations looking at their numbers. We're hesitant to make too many changes right now, because what I want to avoid is putting our schools through multiple changes in a short period of time all over again. So I'm kind of hoping that whatever is going to happen out of Raleigh happens really soon, so that we can make decisions about what we want to do for the rest of this semester. But we've tried to be ready, at least on the instructional side, as best we can. I don't know, again, the transportation question is a whole nother one. You say the schools have to operate under A or B, but what does that mean for transportation? I just think there were some announcements made with a lot of gaps in information about implementation that didn't seem to come across. But we're trying to gather at least the numbers to understand who would be eligible. Of those eligible to come back, what are their feelings? Are they going to stay home no matter what? Or would this suddenly make them change their mind and they would come back? I do think some of it's going to be whether 612 has to stay under B, or if that ends up being told to open up under A. I think that will, for some of our families, make a big difference, but that's part of what we don't know. If the bill passes, it's worded right now that DHHS would still be the guiding force on who's Plan A and who's Plan B. So that is one of my biggest concerns, is that rolls out and we still don't know what plan our schools are supposed to operate under. I do think our schools are going to be put in a rock and a hard place trying to figure out where to go next. But we're trying to be as ready as we can as far as numbers. That 15% I mentioned earlier seems to be about where we are. We occasionally hear of a couple of families that may want to switch either way, but it seems like at this point, under the current Plan A and Plan B, most of everyone is where they want to be. Now, if 612 opens up under A, that I think will probably impact a lot of families who may want to come back now. I just don't know.
The bill passed today, so I guess it goes
So it should be the House.
goes back to
The House, I believe, would next, came out of the Senate, so it goes to the House. I read earlier that they're hoping to have it out of the House by Friday. So
So
that
I
would be
can
helpful.
give a brief update on that. My contacts inside the House do not believe that this bill is going to make its way out of the House until at least next week, at the earliest. Apparently, members on the House side have some serious reservations about it, specifically some of the items that have been mentioned here tonight. You know, like things often do when you're working with a bicameral legislature, one side wants one thing, one side wants the other thing. It's going to end up in conference, is what I've been told. We'll see if that actually happens or not. I know that both the House and Senate are working really hard to try to get something on the governor's desk as soon as possible. So.
Also, Board, I had a conversation today with the governor's education advisor and received some of the latest information, and there's been really no changes to the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Resources Division. And so that's still the answer. Basically, does the guidance change on transportation? No. Does the 6-foot rule in 612 change? Stay the same? Yes. I mean, those are pretty direct as of right this second. Now, they said there may be some adjustments tomorrow from the CDC, announcing that they may send some things down, but they didn't think it would be any substantial changes in the current health guidance.
So the 6-foot rule, does that apply to K through 5, or is that just 6 through 12?
I'll give the short answer, and then I'm going to lead on our experts. The classroom distance, social requirement distance in elementary was reduced. So in the classroom, they don't have to follow the 6-foot rule. Everywhere else in the building, they do. And
That's stupid.
So they can be,
yes, sir.
because there's
That's
pictures
correct.
that are being posted on that
In the
schools
classroom in
now.
elementary, they do not have to maintain the 6-foot rule.
So inside the
They do have to
classroom,
keep masks on, but they don't have to be socially distant. In the hallway, cafeteria, everywhere else, they do.
Which has led a lot of people to question, well, then maybe when we're doing tracing and things, we should be talking about, did they have their mask on? Because in the classroom, the 6-foot rule doesn't pertain.
For elementary.
Elementary, that's correct. Right.
But Plan B in 612, it does. Mr. George, one other thing I would ask, and I guess I would just ask of everyone, is I think on behalf of our teachers and our principals, one thing we would ask and we hope is that if there is a change made, it's made at a logical point in the school year, and by that I mean we're right halfway through the third 9 weeks as of this week. When we look at planning and grading and how units are delivered, and if we have people changing platforms, trying to do that when we're in between units,
Agreed.
it really, I don't think instruction makes a lot of sense. We would hope that whoever above us makes that decision is that they do it in time for the change for the fourth 9 weeks, so that if we are going to change situations, the student, it's a seamless transition. Okay, I mean, maybe I was finishing one unit with teacher X, and I'm going to be now starting my fourth 9 weeks with teacher Y. At least that makes sense. I do hope they don't ask us to try to figure out a way where we're going to move a bunch of kids in the middle of units, in the middle of a 9-week grading period. It can be done, and I know we want them back, but instructionally, it's going to complicate things. And at this point, I mean, we're talking, so we've only got 4 weeks left. I think it's the bill as currently written is 15 days from its enactment. So that's almost 2 weeks. You know, I'm just hoping it's at a normal, logical point in the school year. That's, I think, our only other concern. in terms of instruction anyway.
Fourth 9 weeks starts when?
About 4 weeks from today.
I mean, exactly is it,
It's Monday, I believe. Monday, we started sending out progress reports.
okay.
So we're right around there. I don't know the exact day off the top of my head.
I've been getting a lot of emails about people wanting to go back 5 days a week in elementary school, skipping Wednesday, or going back on Wednesday. I guess this plan from Raleigh, until that's decided, that would just add even more complications to it, wouldn't it?
I think, I won't try to speak for every teacher. What I do see as a concern is if the Raleigh's going to maintain that we have to still continue to offer the Plan C online option,
Yeah.
with no additional resources coming down, no additional teachers to make this happen, the number of teachers that we're still having to have do some blended, the
Yeah,
Wednesdays
some
at least
Wednesday,
give us that.
yeah.
Now, if they were to say that's not an option, we don't have to do Plan C, we can go back to a normal, I think that's a totally different ballgame. That's my only concern, is that if they're going to continue the dual school system approach that they've asked us to do all year, the Wednesdays have turned into an opportunity for us to do tutoring, interventions. We've now got, because we don't have anybody there, we can bring in very small sets of students. Some schools, that's been a creative response. All that would go away as we try to reach out for our remote kids. So that would be my only concern.
I think, just for those that are sending them 4 days a week, finding childcare for 1 day a week,
Yes, sir.
I think is an issue.
I agree.
I get both sides of it, but.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't envy it. I'm looking forward to when we can have one school system and not three. Which is what
Mr.
we're
Hall,
running.
we actually posed that question as well after the conference that came up with the after meeting. And the answer was local BOEs maintain local control to establish their operational plan. So that would be up to this board whether you do 4 days or 5 days.
Okay.
Any other questions, concerns for Dr. Aiken? Thank
I'll
you.
be back.
I know, like in, soon.
Very soon.
Oh, like, you're right
There
now.
you go.
I didn't realize it was quite literally that fast.
Yeah, yeah.
So to get away from all of this, I think last month we mentioned that February is our state CTE Awareness Month, and what I'd like to do tonight is just talk about something that has nothing to do with what the 5-letter word we were just talking about in COVID, and just share with you some of the really cool things that our CTE teachers and our students are doing. Catch you up to date on some of the larger initiatives that we used to discuss before we had Florence and COVID. So I hope this is nothing but positive and exciting news for you. First, I want to thank the following people. First of all, Ms. Fawley Woolweber, you had a chance to meet. She was planning on being here. Unfortunately, she had a family situation with her parents. So she sends her love and thanks. But the rest of the staff, Ms. Denise Pollock, who's our lead ESL teacher, also handles all of our CTE testing, works with our new first year and second year CTE teachers, works on curriculum. The next three amazing people are our career development coordinators at each of the high schools, Amber Wall, Jennifer Mooney, and Bevan Stokes. And of course, I do want to thank all of our CTE teachers. And I would start the story with this. Last June, we had been out since March. A lot of our CTE programs are dependent on the in-person instruction. They do hands-on activities and projects. And in order to get some of the credentials and certificates that you need, you have to complete real-life projects. And of course, that was impossible from March to June. We actually had some teachers who worked with us in our health department, specifically several at Pender High School, who said, we will come in, we'll follow whatever rules they are, but these students are so close to getting their credentials and their certificates to complete these courses, we want to do whatever it takes to come in and let them finish their projects. And that's sort of the beginning, I feel like, of this story of our CTE program. So a taste of some of the things that are happening. All right, I'm stuck here. So one is I want to flash back to 3 years ago, right before I was able to arrive in Pender County. Dr. Blumenreich and Dr. Hill started a Duke grant program, and that was our Pittsco STEM Labs at West Pender. We were hoping to do one a year. Well, we've already got them all. All middle schools now have them. This is an example. This is Cape Fear Middle, some of the robotics work that goes on in the building. This is also a great example besides the math. One of the things that we have lost sight of, I think, a little bit is our students don't have the opportunity to work in partnerships. The STEM labs were actually created and designed to be based on the idea of students working in teams. And we've had to re-engineer that process, unfortunately. But it hasn't stopped it. So some examples from Cape Fear, Surf City Middle. One of the things they have to do is build a roller coaster. They obviously have to do weight projects and build and design various structures to support certain amounts of weight. So we now have, that was one of the centerpieces to our work, was to get these CTE STEM labs in all of our middle schools so that students could experience kind of a variety of careers and fields, and then they would go into the high schools with a little bit better knowledge. So I think that is one success story that I'm really excited about. But that has not ruled out all of the work that we do and the other programs in CTE. Ms. Oakes is one of our amazing CTE teachers at Topsail Middle. She does a phenomenal job with the business and exploring careers work. We also have some new computer science courses that are being taught. And unfortunately, I don't know if she's not either, and he doesn't want to give her credit. But she really does take the students through what it really is when you talk about a business and all the pieces of it, all the parts of how you get a job, resume building. She goes through the whole social skill work. She does some phenomenal stuff. Our high schools, so they are all sort of celebrating in their own various ways the CTE awareness. One of the things that we really have pushed, and I think I mentioned it last month, is because of COVID, if there's something good about it, it's made us think a different way about how to recruit and provide orientation. So in the past, we might have gone down and talked to students about some of the programs, but this year our teachers are making videos of their courses and what they teach, and we're going to be distributing that to our 8th grade students to try to give them a sense of what the possibilities are. So I wanted to just share one from Heidi Trask.
Hi, I'm Ms. Dawson. I'm the health science teacher at Heidi Trask High School. My background is in sports medicine, where I worked as a certified athletic trainer for the last 7 years. Currently at Trask, we offer Health Science 1 and 2. On the screen, you can see the health professional CTE pathway that students can follow if they were to take both of those courses. Both of these classes are really great if you have any interest in the medical field. Both also have a really strong emphasis on hands-on skills, so if you prefer hands-on learning, then that's going to be really beneficial for you as well in these classes. So some of the hands-on aspects include first aid, CPR, stop the bleed. All of these are credentials that students can obtain and get a certification in those courses if they meet the proficiency standards for them. Whether you want to go into the medical field or not, all these certifications are going to look great on any student resume. In Health Science 1, there is a more emphasis on the body systems in relation to anatomy, functions of the system, and any diseases or things that could be wrong with the body system. In Health Science 2, there is more focus on preparing students for the job application process for a job in the medical career. So if you enjoy hands-on learning and have any interest in a career in the medical field, then Health Science would be a great thing for you to check out.
Each of the teachers at Heidi Trask made a Flipgrid video. That was sort of a new thing. That wasn't something they'd normally done. So they're reaching out. Again, we're going to try to find some silver linings. Our use of comfort with digital tools is getting there. So they all made it. The next step is Mr. Riley's going to be going out and helping really try to put them all together and create a very fancy video, kind of a marketing video. One of the really neat ones, I think, is a collaboration actually between Heidi Trask and STAR. They wrote a grant, a farm-to-table grant, and part of that was to develop a hydroponics class or section. And there you can see the lettuce. It really does work. But I want to highlight that one because that's where you start talking about cross programs working together in a way that maybe they wouldn't have. Sorry. Another example, our electrical trades classes at Heidi Trask, the only school that we currently right now are able to offer it in person. Pender High School, our health science and nursing fundamentals, one of our more popular pathways really at all 3 schools. And also you see construction, there's welding, one of the high demand fields. And we even work with students to offer tractor driver training. Topsoil is working on their CTE month opportunities for career success. Each of their various pathways put together some videos and some slides. Here's our carpentry. This has been one of the ones that we really have bragged about across the state. That bench and the chair there, those were actually done during the whole COVID experience of the fall semester. That was, I believe, was the Carpentry 2 classes. We actually sent that out, and that got picked up by the state CTE organizations, and they actually published some pictures of that, talking about the work that our students have been doing. First, let me say, these pictures were taken in the fall of 2019, so I do want that on record. But this was the beginning of building of the greenhouse behind Topsail High School, and you can kind of see the work. They did the surveying of it. They started doing the construction of it. You can see the beginnings of the shell and each of the phases they've been working on that. So this is a number of different skill sets coming together. And if you haven't had a chance behind there, it's really amazing to see what the students have built. And there's some more talking about the different tools that the students are going to get to use and be licensed for. Our culinary arts program, which many of you have had the chance to enjoy their work, and actually want to thank them. You can see them on the screen there. They made all of our cupcakes for our counselors this year, and we were able to distribute those across the school system. But another amazing program that has consistently been able to make some really cool stuff. Our foods and nutrition program and the kitchens that we're able to have. One of the new fields that we really are pushing, and we flashback for a while ago, we surveyed all of our middle and high school students asking about the pathways and the fields that they were most interested in. The technology and engineering design was one of the ones that had the highest scores, and so we have really been trying to, despite everything, get some of those programs in place. And this is some of the work they're beginning to do with the 3D printing, and you can see an example there on the bottom. If you're wondering what the other one is, it's a design challenge to build a structure just using the paper and roll it up and see how tight to see what you can support weight-wise. And then robotics is one of our newest ones that we are really trying to get out. Our students are really clamoring for it. And you can, so the students build it, design it, the students build it, design it, and then get a chance to drive it. And it actually really does pick up very nicely from our STEM labs at the middle school, where there's also a very similar one, not quite as complex. So we're starting to try to stair-step some of our work. So health science too, I wanted to share this one if you don't mind. It's another one of our recruitment videos, but Mrs. Gleaves put in some of the students, and I think it's kind of neat to hear them say why getting into health sciences was something they wanted to do.
Hi, my name is Barbara Gleaves. I am the health science teacher for Health Science 2 Honors at Topsail High School, and my students are very excited about Career and Technical Education Month in February, and they wanted to share with you a project that is an ongoing project of one of their performance-based measurements. We thought CTE Celebration Month would be a good month for them to kind of let you guys know what they are doing in class and how it's going to help them in the real world. So they're going to introduce themselves and tell you a little bit about their career choice and how they think this is going to help them in the real world.
Hi, I'm Anna Kimberly, and I'm a junior at Topsail High School, and I've taken biomedical sciences, health 1, anatomy and physiology, and I'm taking health 2 currently. I would like to be a psychiatric nurse practitioner so that I can help people with mental illnesses get over it and learn to cope with it, as well as just getting the joy from helping people. Hello, my name is Skylar and I'm a junior at Topsail High School, and I am the communications director of HOSA, which is our Club of Future Health Professionals. I've taken multiple health science classes at Topsail, like biomedical technology, health science 1 and 2. I am very excited for our professional portfolio project, and I think I'm going in the direction of being an orthopedic surgeon. I've always been interested in the skeletal system and the structural components of our body, and I'm very excited to get some experience about how to go to a job interview and how to be professional.
Hi, my name is Alexis Stinson. I'm a junior here at Topsail High School. I was in HOSA last year, but because of the events of 2020, I wasn't able to get in this year. So I will be doing it senior year. I have taken Health Science 1, Health Simulations freshman year. I'm currently taking Health Science 2, and I love it. It's so interesting. And for my career, I would like to be an oncologist because since my grandmother passed away with breast cancer, I just want to do something about it and just help people get over cancer. So yeah, that's kind of what I want to do, and I think that doing the dream job portfolio will help me understand what goes into an interview process and how to prepare for one so that I can succeed in the future. So thank you.
Hi, my name is Marissa, and I'm in 11th grade, and I'm a member of HOSA. I have taken Health Simulations, Health Science 1, and Health Science 2. I chose biochemistry because I like working with my hands, and I like learning about biology and chemistry. I think I will benefit from completing my dream job portfolio and the job interview by picking out my job for the future and knowing what to do instead of an interview.
Our health science class, they mentioned the Stop the Bleed program. That's something we've been able to embed in most of the classes. She mentioned HOSA, so we did have a regional competition back in the fall, and just, if you probably can lose count, the number of first places that are on that screen. So these students not only do well locally, but when they go up against statewide competitions and regional competitions, our students perform exceptionally well. So it tells you the quality of the instruction and the quality of the students that we have in place. One of the ones that we're really just excited about is our new Adobe Design. Right now, we're only able to offer that at Topsail High School, but we're looking forward to trying to expand that. We are working with Cape Fear in the meantime to help students who are interested at either Pender or Heidi Trask until we can try to carry it over. But the idea is to someday put Mr. Riley out of business by having our students do all this work for us. Computer science is another one that we're expanding, especially the coding. That is something that, our students were excited about, and one of our first things we tried to implement to respond to the survey. So some good news, I'm really excited about what we've been able to do with the STEM labs in our middle schools. Our CTE teachers, despite the circumstances of the last 2 years, really have worked to design some really cool projects, some hands-on activities. One of the things that always impresses me is they are great examples of taking all the learning from all these other core areas and putting it together, and you see why those skills and concepts matter. One of our steps to really getting past just the STEM, but even thinking true 612 integration, is Major Clarity. It's a software program that's a counseling program. It allows our students to take some interest surveys, and then from that, we get a sense of the career fields, and we discuss that with them in middle school. But that information transfers up into 9th grade, and it begins to help us think about what we might want to do for a 4-year plan for the student. It also gives us information about what kind of courses do we need to be preparing for in the future. So we just got that started this year. Our middle school and high school counselors have begun working together. It was a great collaboration between Mr. Taylor and Ms. Willenweber. You can kind of see the pathway. It's a great example. That was actually from Trask. That's some stuff that they're building to try to advertise all the different pathways they have. And that's why I put that kind of big front and center. That continues to be our primary focus, is helping students connect these courses together and understand it's not a standalone. It was one of the reasons I wanted you to really see the teacher from Trask. And she made the point of, it's not just this one class over here and then a different class over here, but if you put these classes together, you can develop a pathway and credentials that then you can take to Cape Fear Community College. You can take it to a 4-year university. You can take it straight to a career field. But it's helping get past the isolation of one class here, and then they don't go together and they don't serve you. The drone, I didn't get a chance to mention that, but we're piloting it right now, and we hope to, that was not intended to be a pun, but we have a program at Topsail that we're hoping to be able to take elsewhere along with our robotics work. I think the one I would want to really stress as I close is our next big hurdle or task is the apprenticeships and the internships. We've begun talking with Cape Fear. We've also been talking with the community college system and NCDPI about really trying to get a structured apprenticeship and internship program for our students. So I think it's great what we're doing, and the class experience they're getting is phenomenal. But the next step is to allow our students that during the day to be actually go work in some of these fields and some of these industries and getting that real life experience. So that's our next, I think, really big step. All these other ones are either in place now or growing. This is the one that if we can finally get out of this whole social distancing and the restrictions and all of that, that we really would like to see kind of moving forward. I had a conversation with Cape Fear last Friday and their continuing education department. We've begun to kind of talk about what we might be able to do there. So hopefully look a lot more for about apprenticeships and internships in the future. That's our big next step. So there's a lot going on. Our CTE teachers have done some really phenomenal work, and I appreciate and congratulate them on that. So some good news.
Any questions or concerns? So I'm just curious of the other board members, but I remember my daddy telling me in high school that if there was one class I would take, it was typing. And back then it was called typing. And it wasn't on an electric typewriter at that time. But to this day, I can type pretty well just because, you know, you had to do the words per minute and all those tests you had and everything. And I took home ec. I'd love to tell you I can still sew and cook, but no. But I did take home ec. I mean, there were certain things. And as a daughter of a teacher who taught drafting and carpentry, I know the importance of so many of these classes that you're talking about. And it's amazing the classes that are offered now for kids that can do things if that interests them. So I'm just curious, did any of y'all take, well, we called them, I don't know what we called them back then, like ag classes, and did any of y'all take those in high school? What'd y'all take? I'm curious.
I took a course back when I was at Pender High, homestead and gardening, and it was basic horticulture, plants, seasonal. I'm trying to think, and I took typing.
Yeah.
And I think in middle school I had home ec. Still can't cook very well, but I did go into home ec.
That's neat.
So I took auto mechanics. That's back when we did that. And took wood shop. We built sheds and big stuff back then. Houses. We actually built houses.
That's right.
Yeah.
Auction them off. I took home ec, Miss Mitchell. I took typing. I tried to take them off.
And I'm leaving off ones. I mean, like, just realizing I didn't get a chance to show a picture. I mean, our masonry program is phenomenal. Wins awards over and over again. The variety, it's exploded in a way. And even just recently with some of the technology stuff that wasn't available.
I have a question for
Yes,
you. Several of the programs that you mentioned, you said that they were already at Topsail High School. How long would some of these, like the drone program and other, I know a lot of it has to do with cost, but when can we expect Heidi Trask and Pender High School to be able to get some of these, because some of the programs are offered at Topsail?
That's a great question.
Or is this dreaming for
robotics
Pender?
is already being developed at Pender High School. The Adobe one, for example, is what we're working to. I don't want to go ahead, it might mess up the video. If we can't have a teacher there yet to do it, because obviously certifications are an issue, and we're working to transfer people who have current certifications in one area to be able to get them highly qualified. As unfortunately, it's not like, so I was a social studies teacher. I could teach anything under social studies. The issue with CTE is you're not a CTE teacher such that you can suddenly teach any course in CTE. You actually still have to have specific areas of certification. So our first hurdle is shifting or adding certification areas to teachers at all the schools. Some we already have in place. The robotics one is actually one that we do already have on the western side. In the meantime, one of our goals working with Cape Fear is to offer students the same classes, just offer them through Cape Fear until we can get those classes in place. Some of it is working with the schools on student interest. The interests don't necessarily line up exactly at all three schools. One of our goals is to implement the survey. We bothered to do it, and we want to try to make sure that we respond accordingly. So we're looking at the interest surveys that were original. We're looking at the current course master schedules and trying to figure out what are students taking or not taking. We are finding that there are some courses students don't want. So we're going to have to start shifting some of the licensure issues to allow for that. We also don't want to lose some of the programs that are loved. The masonry one being one that kind of realized, and I wish I had had a picture of it. That's a very popular one and one that students do extremely well about. We don't want to lose the good programs just to substitute for other ones. So it's a bit of a balancing act. So course to course, I don't have a great timeline that I can give you right now and say exactly at this date. It is a shift that's undergoing. We will be adding more of the coding and more of the technology engineering. Heidi Trask, for example, I didn't show you his video on Flipgrid, but we do have a technology and engineering design teacher there who will be doing a lot of some of the same kind of robotics work, just not a full robotics class. But it is a goal. The ultimate goal, whether every class is face-to-face or not, is that any student in Pender County can access any of these pathways, whether it's actually at that school or not. That's kind of our mission, and whether that's working with partnerships through Cape Fear, if that might be using virtual teaching, we've been thrust into that, looking at trying to have students be able to attend some of the classes virtually at high schools, either way. And then getting creative, like this summer, Ms. Woolenweber already wants to have we're calling it like a credentials camp for our students to be able to come in during the month of June, to be able to do the performance-based tasks you kind of heard of. So even if the student can't always do the performance at that particular school, we make sure that before the year's over, they have a chance to go in and do it. So course to course, I don't have a great answer for you yet. I can sort of work on something for you, but I will tell you that the goal is no matter what, even conversely, we don't have all the programs in Topsail. We have some that are at Pender and Heidi that we don't have at Topsail, and making sure that they can get with that class one way or the other.
Yeah, I want to make sure you mentioned that, because I don't want a misconception that Topsail's got a bunch that
No.
Heidi Trask and Pender doesn't. There's some at Pender that Heidi Trask and Topsail don't have, and there's some at Heidi Trask that.
To be
Topsail
fair, I just had a lot of
don't have.
pictures. So
Yeah, you repeated that a couple of times with, that was only offered at Topsail. But
yeah, no, there's
there
a
is
number.
classes at all the schools.
That was the reason why I raised my concern,
Yes, sir.
because, I mean, when you're making a presentation like this and you hear the same school mentioned, and then those people watching at home get that perception, that's why I was asking about that.
Yes, sir.
You know, and I do understand there's schools that have different things based on their population, but I just wanted to make sure the
Yes,
general
sir.
public knows what you're saying.
And one of the things that I would want anyone listening to know is the high school course catalog that's getting ready to come out will have all of the pathways available at any school in Pender County. That's one of the changes we wanted to make, so that any student would know what is available anywhere in Pender County. And then that will allow us to look at what's called a tally sheet. Then we know what they're interested in, and we can start working from there. So it'll have every program listed, the current schools that it's at, which we can then use to try to make sure that if it's not at that student's school, we figure out a way. And actually a great one to follow up on your point, Mr. George, we had a student at Pender High School who was interested in the Adobe design class. And previously, when we would try to get partnerships with Cape Fear, one of the things we were always told was if you offer it at one school in your county, you can't replace it with another entity. They were calling that supplanting. We were able to kind of explain to people that doesn't make a lot of sense when the student's not attending that school. So they actually, common sense prevailed. We got to change. And so now we can make partnerships where anywhere, if it's not physically there, we can still get the student there one way or the other. But point well taken, sir.
Board, I'd like to remind you, if you could think back far enough, before COVID, before the hurricane, the presentation was, how do we build out of our middle schools and connect it to the industries that are growing in our region? You're starting to see us put these pieces together. I mean, $1 million worth of STEM labs going into the middle schools. Basically, we're going to design those around the industries that are growing the interest of students. That's your jumping off point. That's where you recruit these kids to go in these pathways that Dr. Aiken's discussing here today. You'll never have enough CTE teachers in the high school. Never. I was a CTE teacher. They've been coming out. Every time there's legislation passed, they don't give you money, so they take the positions from somewhere else that's normally upper grades and push them down. So we've got to get creative in building those pathways with our higher ed partners and creating any kind of class these kids need. And have our teachers kind of feed in so that the kid doesn't understand, or the student doesn't understand, I'm just taking classes. They don't understand whether it's a high school class or a college class. They're just taking classes, and magically, at the end, they have a pathway. So they either end up with a certificate, a degree, or at least a year in to whatever they decided they wanted to do. So when they walk across the stage, what am I going to do now? Well, you're already halfway to being whatever. So why don't you finish? Or here's your certificate along with your diploma. All those conversations we had way back then, we're trying to get back to. And Dr. Aiken and his crew and everything you've been talked to about tonight is part of that discussion.
And I do have to say, just to comment, one of the most heartening things I saw with all of those photographs that you had shown was there's no gender lines in this anymore. A girl can take automotive mechanics, she can take robotics, and these were the things back when I was in school. Typically, the girls had their own set things, and the guys had their own set things, and I always thought, gee, I would really like to take auto mechanics, seriously.
And that actually is something that we intentionally monitor and called, unfortunately, this term is still called non-traditional. Look forward to the day that we don't use that term.
Right.
But we actually do still look at that and specifically try to make sure that we are busting down some of those barriers. And it is exciting to see that. I think we're getting past the day when a field was determined by a particular thing. It is exciting, I agree.
Indeed,
Thank you.
it was good to see.
It is, I agree.
It was a great presentation. Mr. Hall, you stepped out, but I hadn't got to Mr. Smith yet, but we were asking if any of us had taken classes in high school that would be, or considered CTE. We were talking about typing, and you took carpentry and auto mechanics, and what did you take? Did you take any in high school? You didn't take any. Mr. Smith, did you take any?
I did the same as what y'all had mentioned.
Like typing?
Typing and home ec,
You did
yes.
typing, so yes, you did, yeah. That's interesting.
Well,
Good. Thank
thank
you,
you.
sir. We appreciate it.
Absolutely.
All right. Moving right along. I do believe, Ms. Chestnut, you are up.
Loser.
She's coming.
She's working because she's emailing me.
Yep, I am emailing you. Finding out stuff. I don't know if I can see this on my phone. I didn't get back in time to go back. So as you can see, you have the regular reports that we usually put in here. Just, if you have any questions, I'll be glad to try and answer them.
Board members, any questions for Ms. Chestnut based on what you've seen?
No, I got to talk to her about it. She said talk to her tonight.
All right, I think we're good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving along now to the consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve consent agenda as not necessarily presented on this page in front of us, but based on what we amended earlier?
I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda minus items 9 and 11 as we presented earlier.
All right, Mr. Hollis made the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Burns is seconding. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion carries. Moving along to the action agenda. Mr. Aiken. You might as well just stay up here.
Good to see you, members of the board. I haven't seen you in a little bit. Wanted to bring to you request for approval, referencing some earlier conversations, talking about our partnership with Coastal Horizon, our desire to continue our outreach and actually look to create a day treatment program in the very near future. The first step is formalizing our partnership. So before you, I believe, Mr. McPherson handled that. A hard copy, this is the version that we would ask you to look at, not the version that's in the initial board packet. There were some last-minute changes in some of the language, but here to request your approval to move forward with this memorandum of agreement so that we can begin further planning for our day treatment program.
Has legal had opportunity to look over this?
Yes, sir. I believe this is the very, 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 very most recent, latest update.
Yes, sir, Mr. Smith, and it has had our edits and the edits of the day treatment facility. So, and this is a signed copy by the day treatment facility. So this is as close as final as we get with you guys.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the Pender County Schools Coastal Horizons Memorandum of Agreement for day treatment facilities.
Okay, Ms. Burns has made the motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. George is seconding. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. All right,
Thank you, Madam
sir.
Chair. Thank you, members of the board.
All right, next item, Mr. Allen is going to present wireless access point purchase, or Dr. Blumenwright, yes.
I will stand in for Mr. Allen, and if
Okay.
I get into trouble, I know where he is right now. So what you have in front of you is a request and a recommendation to purchase wireless access points using E-rate funding. In the materials, you can see the last time that we've done a refresh was 5 years ago. 5 years in technology, specifically to something like networking devices for access points, is like talking about the Paleolithic. I mean, this is like long time. So the technology has changed, and this is to replace the wireless access points at all 18 schools. As you can see, Chuck has engaged in a mini bid process, which was a concern that was discussed, but he did engage in that. And so therefore, with the E-rate discount funding and with the DPI reimbursement, if it's approved, and historically they have approved the E-rate process every single year, there will be no cost. That being said, if they don't approve E-rate, DPI, then we will not be held responsible and can cancel our order at any particular time. So, we are asking that you approve this process as is, and we move forward. And we move forward.
Okay,
I make a motion that we approve the wireless access point purchase as presented.
all right, Mr. Smith has made the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Ms. Burns is seconding. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? So carried. Thank you, sir. And I guess you're staying up for the next one.
Yes, ma'am. Madam Chair, members of the board, what you have in front of you is a process-laden series of calendars. And what we are recommending is the revised traditional calendar 1B for the traditional schools, the Pender Lee draft number 1, and then, of course, early college, they've got to line their calendar up with the community college. As you can see, looking at all of those, we try to kind of split Solomon's knot. You know, trying to give everything we can to everybody to make sure that we can all be on the same or similar type of schedule, have similar times out, and still kind of have our cake and eat it too. And of course, as you can see with the traditional, we end up with a number of bank days. We have been told by NCDPI to expect a regular school year next year. And so we constructed the calendar with that in mind.
So 1B, draft 1. 1B, draft 1. What was the other?
So it's the revised 1B, which took the workday
Revised 1B.
in March and moved it to the Monday in April, right after Easter.
Pender Early College. There's no extras on that, correct?
Excuse me, sir?
I'm just trying to get my motion right. So Pender Early College is just the one that's presented, only one here.
Correct.
And
Yes, sir.
revision 1B for the traditional.
Revised one, yes,
And
sir.
draft 1,
And draft 1 for Pender Lee.
Pender Lee,
Yes,
is
sir.
what's recommended. Just for clarity, so everybody knows why we're doing the traditional draft 1B revision. It has the spring break quite a few weeks away from the traditional Easter break that we have now. For just some clarity and understanding why we did that, I think would be helpful, because there's gonna be questions of why we moved it away from
So
the
there's,
Easter?
there's a number of reasons. One of the primary ones was strictly from an instructional and academic standpoint. It puts the break so late on during the year that by the time that they're coming back and the time that the school year ends, you have a minimal amount of time to cover any particular information that is new and then to get ready for testing. And typically, of course, with any of the review processes that at the end of the year, it can be anywhere from 1 week to 3 weeks. Just kind of stop, drop, and get all that information in. So that's one of the particular things. Secondly, with the early college, a substantial number of the students that attend the early college are actually from the west side. On the east side, a number of the students take advantage of the dual enrollment Huskinsville that attend CFCC. So it only would make sense that for a number of those students on both sides then, for a wide variety of reasons, then have a similar break.
Okay, because currently, those kids, the dual enrollment kids, don't really get a spring break. Because with Cape Fear's out, they're in it in traditional school.
Correct. Correct.
So I mean, I agree. I just want to make sure everybody out there listening knows, because, there's going to be questions.
Mhm.
It's something that's not tradition.
Absolutely. It's definitely not traditional, but it's just interesting how it all kind of layers on top of each other and kind of works together like that.
And it's pretty neat to see the last day of school, May 20th, too. That's-
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Absolutely.
So just to clarify, because I know there are a lot of people watching and listening right now. So basically, the first day for students on this one is August 23rd, correct?
Yeah.
Am I right?
Mhm.
Okay, so for everybody listening, the first day, because especially with parents I know who have seniors who may have other students in our school system, but have students who might be moving into universities next year,
Mhm.
hopefully. And then we still have a work day. Do we still have work days most every month?
Once we get past the beginning of the year work days, our first work day is actually in October, the optional work day, and it's at the end of the grading period, so it's right after.
But we have Labor Day in September. So,
Correct.
okay.
There's days off every
All right,
month.
there's days off every month. That's what I'm getting at.
Or work days or days
Or
off.
work days or days off, correct? Okay, and then, so basically, spring break is going to be the 7th through the 11th of March, is that correct?
Correct.
All right, so everybody lives in 7th through the 11th, and then, however, we've finagled some days around, so you'll still have, Good Friday and Easter Monday off for Easter, is that correct?
Right, that work day that was in March was moved
That's
to
correct, so that we
April.
would give them more time.
18th.
Okay. And then the last day of school is May 20th,
Correct.
correct? Okay. All right, so for everyone listening, I know there's been a lot of talk about when's the calendar coming out and all that. If we do approve this one tonight, that's how it will look, so. All right, it is nice to see Cape Fear Community College and us on the same. That's pretty neat.
Absolutely.
All right. Any other discussion, questions from board members? Mr. Smith, Mr. Hall, because I know this is always a big discussion item. Ms. Burns, you're good?
I'm good.
We're ready to move on for a motion? All right, do we have a motion?
Madam Chair, I make a motion, we approve revision 1B for traditional, draft 1 for Pender Lee, and the Pender Early College schedule for 21-22 school year.
Mr. George has made the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Hall seconds. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. Thank you, sir. I know that you guys have worked really, really hard on this. People don't realize how hard it is to put a calendar together. It is not a fun time held by all, I will say that. So thank you for all the
We
hard work you
appreciate
put into
that.
this. We
And-
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and then we are adding, all right, that was it for what we had originally. 14A. Mr. Hall has requested that we add on an item under action agenda, not necessarily to approve anything tonight, but just for you to present some concerns about North Carolina School Board Association. Did I say that correctly?
Yeah,
Okay.
Everyone in here knows that there's a certain legal proceeding that we are having an issue with them on right now, and I just think they failed to live up to their end of the deal. with some coverage that we have, and quite frankly, I don't think that our $60,000 a year in fees is a very good use of taxpayer money. And I also don't think that the politics of that organization lines up with the politics and the beliefs of this board and a lot of people in our county. So I think that sometime between now and July the 1st, when our half-beat coverage, so-called coverage we have with them expires, we probably really ought to look into doing something a little different. So, I mean, I'm in favor of walking away from them right now, but I realize that everyone else is not, so, you know, I'll leave it at that. But that's, you know, I think y'all are all aware of some of the stuff I'm talking about here, so that's all I've got. Thank you.
So he's talking about the school board trust, and we've bid it out before, and I think we got some erroneous information back then. According to what we're going through now with them, I agree with you about that. Ms. Chestnut, we had a few years back, we had a group come in and give a presentation. When is that when is that policy? Isn't that usually around April we do that? March, April?
Yes, we need, if we're going to do this, we need to go ahead and get that in place, because the gentleman that came before was Yogi, right? And he is from Surrey Insurance, but he represents a wide variety of companies. So he can get bids from a number of companies for you. If you would like for him to make a presentation to you before we get into that, we could do it through a Zoom, maybe at, next meeting or something, but, I could let him know that we would like to see some bids on all this stuff. As you know, with some of his companies we already have, like our, auto and that kind of stuff. And so there are some things, there's some little twists of things that you need to be aware of. And, I mean, if you would like to see a presentation, we can do that. If you just want them to get bids, we can do that. Whatever you need, but I just need to, just let him know we need to do it, because it takes a while to get those kind of things.
Right. I don't mind having a presentation. I just want to make sure we get the facts. I mean, Mr. Attorney, if you could help us. There were several questions last time. One of them was if, say, a incident happened 2 years ago. Currently with the school board trust, it was our understanding that we were covered with them, but if we switched, the new company was from that day forward. It didn't. So those kind of questions I still have.
Yeah, because some of it is date that happened, and some of it is the date that it's reported. And I know Mr. McPherson knows more about that than I do.
Generally speaking, an insurance claim, it's who is the carrier who was responsible at the time that the incident occurred. However, I think it needs to be crystal clear for you guys what the rules of engagement are going to be moving forward, because you'd be transitioning from what is considered a risk pool to traditional insurance, and the implications of that, and making sure that whoever the vendors you're going with are, and Ms. Chestnut's right, in some instances, depending on what the claim is, it may be the date the claim is filed, and therefore we're looking forward instead of backwards. But generally speaking, it's the date when the incident or injury occurred. And so you could still have an issue that would come up in a year or two from now that could still be under the trust, because that was your insurer at the time. With that being said, it's the determination needs to be very clear to you guys, as far as if you're going with a private insurance carrier, what their plan would be for that coverage. If you were to get sued today for something that happened 5 years ago, are they going to say, well, we weren't your carrier at this time, you need to take it up with your previous carrier? Or are they going to continue to be an advocate for you and provide you coverage because at the time the claim or complaint was made, they were your insurer?
And that was that was some of the questions we had last time. One of the other questions from last time was the immunity. Our understanding was if you went with the insurance company, you lost that. As long as you were with the trust, according to the General Assembly statute, something, you retained your immunity as long as you stayed with the trust.
So at no point do you lose your immunity. You just subject yourself to a suit up to the point of your insurance coverage. So what that essentially means is, to the extent you have insurance, you can get sued for, say, $1 million, and your insurance company has to pay you that $1 million. Then after that $1 million is over, your immunity kicks in, and you no longer have any liability whatsoever because you're a governmental entity. The way the trust works, because once again, it's a risk pool, not insurance. It's very interesting because they sort of advertise themselves as insurance, is that technically they are not insurance under North Carolina's rules, which is it's a really strange bit. So essentially they operate in this world of the trust only acts whenever it receives a lawsuit, and at that point they determine whether or not they're going to engage in whether providing counsel or defense and coverage for the claim. That's one of the disadvantages of going with a risk pool, is that there has to be a lawsuit filed before that determination is made. A lot of times with private insurance carriers, as you guys know, they cut it off at the pass well before you get sued. And they engage in that conversation well in advance. But I think running a substantive RFP for insurance coverage is a good idea. So those are my thoughts, Mr. George.
So we basically have no coverage right now.
So I know this is more discussion than action, but how do we, Madam Chair, Director,
Do I
Dr.
ask to
Hill?
make a motion that we
Ask for
pursue?
that?
I mean, what do we do?
Yeah, no, I mean, what you can do is you can direct the administration to begin the RFP process, to begin looking for insurance coverage, both property errors and omissions, and liability coverage, general liability coverage. Did I
So we
miss
need to
anything
make
there?
that motion.
General liability.
Yeah.
So we need to make that motion. Is that what you're
No,
saying?
you said
Just
just
direct me.
direct them.
You,
So
you,
just direct?
you can, by consensus, you can direct the administration to do that.
I got you.
So that was my questions on that part, the trust. The other part, the $59,000, that consisted of that policy coverage and our training that we have. And there was one part in there I didn't understand because I didn't realize we were still using their policy
Yeah.
services.
When
So-
they redid our policies some years back, in order to keep them up to date, they charge a fee each year for sending the policies to us. That needs to be changed so we can update our book, yeah.
So that really confusing me because we pay their legal department to do those policies, and then we're paying
And our legal
our legal
department to
department to
do the
review those
same
policies
thing.
again. Is that,
And then there's the matter of training for us also.
You
yeah,
know,
we get, I
when-
know we can get the training through other means, but I don't understand the pot while we're paying. The pot, I know you don't, I mean, I'm not.
I mean,
directly
that was
trained.
just something that was done when they updated the policies, because policies change as laws change.
Right.
So,
Mr. McPherson, do you understand what he's
Oh,
asking
I
about that?
understand the question. I was unaware that you guys were paying for the policy update services.
No, we are.
yeah, we have been ever since they
So,
updated those
I mean,
policies.
I realize you guys were getting policy updates. I assumed that came with your membership and you weren't paying for that.
No.
Because they have a series of updates that they just push out to their membership without charge. I mean, that is one of the aspects of but, you know, we
So-
basically take school boards association policies and other policies and make them better on a regular basis and/or create our own stuff if we don't like what they come up with.
And we've done, we've done that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I thought
I mean,
that's
your
what we
Title
were-
IX policies
I
are a
really thought
perfect
that's what we
example.
were doing for the
Yeah.
past few years. We got away from their template because it didn't, that template doesn't fit every single school district.
That's right.
Yeah.
Have they already been paid for the whole year? Betsy, I'm sure that you probably.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they bill you at the beginning of the year.
The whole,
Yeah.
everything.
Well, I mean, except for when you're gonna have conferences and stuff. I mean, they bill that as they come up, but,
Now the training part, we can get the training elsewhere, but this is just my
They
personal
do a good
opinion.
job of it.
There is some of that training that I'd like to listen to, and it's not them doing it. I mean, of course, they're the facilitator, they're the ones lining it up, but they have outside people that come in and do it. So that part of it, I'm not that much worried. I mean, some of it's good training. That's what I'm trying to say.
Well, and I don't think
Yeah,
there's
you
any
remember to do it.
disagreement on this board about the particular training. I think there's some, what I'm hearing is there are concerns about your errors and omissions and your liability insurance coverage. There's concerns about your policy manuals coverage. And outside of that, it's more of, let's make sure, we get those two things right and done well by someone else. And then as far as your membership in the organization, actually attending events and doing those things, I mean, it looks like the membership dues is $15,920 as of this year. I mean, that's it's based on ADM, and it's a quarter of the total cost of what's in front of you. So, just to consider. Now, obviously, this includes several conferences and whatnot, but just throwing that number out, the access to those events and trainings, I don't think there's any disagreement that those can be valuable to you. So,
Out of the 115, I think it is, school board systems,
yes, sir.
are there any that are not members of this of that?
Not that I'm aware of.
Never-
So we would be the first to withdraw?
Wait a minute, we were talking about earlier about some systems that don't use them.
Well, what are you talking? Are you talking about the association, or you're talking about the trust? Because those are two very different things.
Well, what was brought up, if I understand the amending to the agenda, was about the North Carolina School Board Association.
So the association, all 115 are members. The trust is the insurance arm of the risk pool of the association. So instead of, and it's a separate entity and it has its own separate board of directors.
So then to amend the agenda, then what we've been discussing is not what was amended to be, basically.
Well, I think there was a
If it's two separate, I mean, I know it's down the same rabbit hole, but.
Okay.
But it's funneled through them, so it was still, and like, was a discussion.
Administrator or whatever, I guess you.
That's exactly right. So,
Has what been discussed at Don, you're the one who brought all this up. Are you
Well,
satisfied with what's being said?
I didn't realize that so every school system in the state is a member of the association, but not necessarily the trust.
that's correct.
So it would be possible for us to drop the trust and to keep our membership in the association.
Absolutely. And the one thing I would say, and this is one of the things I believe I mentioned to you and Ms. Burns earlier, is there are several school districts in the state of North Carolina that have specifically not engaged with the trust for their insurance and choose other people.
Yeah.
For various reasons. I mean, several folks, larger school districts have chosen not to do that. Guilford, Wake, Union, Charlotte, Mecklenburg. I believe New Hanover does not use them. I don't believe. But I mean, that's it. It's purely a choice of, we're talking about a risk pool versus actual insurance.
Well, see, and I can tell you that personally, required or not, I, for one, will not be taking any training that they offer just because of my bad blood here with them.
Sure.
So the law can be what the law wants to be. So the public knows, we're required to take training, which I find very interesting, is administered by the North Carolina School Board Association for the most part. So I bet you there was some lobbying going on for that. But I hate to be kind of ornery here, but just with the bad blood, I mean, when you are supposed to provide coverage, whether it be a risk pool, real insurance, whatever, in my opinion, and this is my opinion only, everybody else here can have their own opinion, I think they failed us. I can't discuss I can't talk, I'm sorry. I can't discuss the specifics of it because it's a closed session matter. It's a legal case. Everyone at this table knows what I'm talking about. But I just don't feel like we were done right, and I just can't support a place that does business that way. So, but I will admit, they do a good job on the training, and I've taken it before. I just, me personally, I just can't help support a place that is gonna do that. I mean, because the fact of the matter is, with no coverage, those dollars could come out of money that we need to educate children. It's that simple. All thanks to, in my opinion, and I will emphasize my opinion, their failure to provide coverage in this risk pool. And I'm through preaching now, sorry.
But, Mr. Hall, are you in agreement that maybe we should at least, like he said, we could direct Ms. Chestnut to pursue other avenues to look at for the trust? Is that what we're talking about,
I think
basically?
there's a consensus for
Is there
that.
consensus? Is there consensus for us to do that tonight?
Indeed, yes.
Can I get an aye from everybody?
Aye.
Aye. Yes.
I'm gonna abstain because I'm obviously, I'm biased here with it, so I'm gonna stay out, but.
Okay.
Okay. But that's a yes.
I do have a question. If Mr. Hall refuses to take training, will Mr. Hall fall under any kind of legal actions?
Well, I think what Mr. Hall is saying is he refuses to take training from the School Boards Association. He can still receive training from our firm or anyone else other than the School Boards Association provides ethical training and other training to provide school board members with continuing education requirements.
So is there anything in you all's contract about training? I think there is.
There is.
There is indeed. We have, I can't quote you the number of, hours of continuing education that we provide based on your retainer, but there are some included.
Because if I'm not badly mistaken, I think when I first became a school board member, my training was from Richard. And
Yep. I'm pretty sure you're right, sir.
my other question to you, and this certainly needs to be in public. So if that training is in your contract, is it going to cost the school system money outright for me to have the training? Or if that's included, or you see where I'm going with this?
Yes, sir. No, if it's included in the retainer, it doesn't cost the school district anything. It's included with the monthly retainer for our services.
There's a certain amount of hours per year I can.
And
Okay, because I'm not going to be responsible for costing extra money because of my own feelings about the association.
yes, sir.
And again, I admit, their training is pretty good. This is entirely about what I think about the risk pool.
Yes, sir.
So,
Mr. Hall, if you remember, normally when we do our retreats in normal years, Rich would come or Brandon would come
Well,
and, or
yes.
both together. That's that part of their, our
I just have a real problem
Fees.
with, you've got required training that was probably, and I'm speculating here, was probably done as the result of lobbying efforts by various places. I'm not going to name any in particular, but I think everybody can read between the lines here what I mean. And I don't know, I just have a problem with that kind of thing because, you take the same training every year. I mean, it's kind of redundant really, but then it turns into a money grab. But that's just me talking. Sorry about that.
All right, so we're all in consensus that we're agreeing to direct Ms. Chestnut to go forth, correct? All right. All right, thank you. Good. All right, good. All right, I do believe that's all the action items that we have. And now we're moving on to comments from board members. Mr. Smith, would you like to start?
Sure, thank you. I want to, with being that it's Black History Month, I want to say how proud I am that North Carolina elected its first African-American black lieutenant governor, Mark Robinson, who's a public school, someone who has advocated as a 35th lieutenant governor for changes in public school and make sure that there's no bias in certain agendas. And so I just wanted to acknowledge that North Carolina does have our very first black lieutenant governor. I'm very proud of that.
Thank you. Mr. Hall?
I have none.
All right. Ms. Burns?
Just thank you everyone for continuing to do a good job. I think that we, you know, we're making it through. It's doing pretty well, so that's it.
All right. Mr. George?
I agree, Ms. Burns. Thank you to everyone that's continuing to work long hours and hard days. There's one thing that I've got some feedback on that I would like to just bring up. The 7,300 form that went out last month. No, I got the mic on. 7,300, policy 7,300, the one they had to sign. The regulation. There was a lot of concern that we were watching what they were doing in their personal lives and who they were hanging out with, and was the intent of that, was a get you. My personal opinion, that was not my intent, and
No.
I don't feel like that was the intent of the board, and I just want to get that out there that that's not what we're doing. Your personal life, teachers, staff, everybody, mine, personal life is your personal life. What you do outside of the school building is none of my concern. So I just want them to feel comfortable and confident that we're not watching them when they leave school. That's all I have.
Just a reminder to all parents and everyone out there, you know, Valentine's is coming up, so make sure you show the love to not only your children and your families, but also to those teachers and everyone who works out there. And when we're talking about loving the bus and thanking our bus drivers, there's a group that we just sometimes forget to say thank you. Our bus monitors, those guys at the bus garage. If the buses don't run, then we can't go pick our kids up. And as many of you know, my husband, who passed away in 2004, he was a director of transportation in Orange County, but also here. And I can tell you from experience, there's a lot of work that goes into making sure those buses run each and every day. Some of them drive them themselves when we don't have bus drivers to do that. That's just the way it is. That's the nature of it. That's what we do. We all get in there together and get the job done. So it's a huge thank you to all of them. Just piggybacking on what Mr. George said, I too have heard feedback, and I would just like to say on a personal note that I personally have a child who plays volleyball with a different league outside, and we did go to a tournament, and we were careful, but that is not our intent at all, and please understand that. Because if that was the intent, then I would be one of those being scrutinized also. And please understand, what you do on your personal life is up to you. Just everyone, just continue to be careful at what you're doing when you're outside, within school, outside of school, everywhere. We hate what we're going through right now, but it is what it is, and we just have to get through it. So just wanted to make sure I added on to that. Thank you to everyone. I have no other comments at this time. At this time, Dr. Hill, do you have any announcements?
I just want to say that we are excited that the federal relief fund for COVID is coming down, support funds. We hope that'll be a significant number. What they've been talking about it is, so we hope to have more information on that for the board as soon as possible. Again, this money is focused basically on health and safety, mental health, remediation type things that are most needed. So hopefully there'll be some good news coming out of that effort from the feds through the state. And I just want to thank you for recognizing the bus drivers as well. They're definitely our local heroes that we don't recognize enough. So we just appreciate everything that they do.
Thank you. It looks like at this time we need a motion to go into closed session. Do we have a motion? Who would like to read all of that?
The Pender County Board of Education will enter closed session subject to the advice from the attorney pursuant to North Carolina General Statute 143-318-11A1A6 to prevent the disclosure of confidential personnel information under General Statute 115C-319 and to consider matters relating to the initial employment of an individual employee. The board will also go into closed session pursuant to General Statute 143-318-11A3 to consult with the board's attorney in order to preserve attorney-client privilege, to consider confidential student matters, as provided in North Carolina General Statutes 143, 318, 11A1, and the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act 20 U.S.C. G 1232G, and North Carolina Statute 115C-402. This closed session is also necessary to consider and give instructions concerning a lawsuit entitled Burns Fisher versus Pender County Board, ETAL.
All right. Mr. George has made the motion to go into closed session. Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Hall's made the second. Do we have, all in favor say aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. We are now going into closed session. Thank you, everyone. Have a safe night. Members, do I have a motion to come out of closed session?
I make a motion that we come out of closed session.
Mr. Hall has made the motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Burns is second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All as carried.
I make a motion we approve the HR report as presented.
Mr. Smith has made a motion that we approve the HR report as presented. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Burns is second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
I make a motion that we adjourn the meeting.
Mr. Smith has made the motion that we adjourn. Mr. Hall is seconded. Do I have a favor? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Meeting adjourned. Thank you.